The acrid smell of smoke still hung in the Nevada air, as Elena Martinez stood in the ashes of what had been her home just hours before. Her long black hair was singed at the edges, her face streaked with soot and tears, and her simple cotton dress was torn and blackened from her desperate attempts to save something, anything, from the flames. "They burned my clothes," she whispered to herself, staring at the smoldering ruins where her trunk had stood. Everything she owned in the world had been reduced to ash and memory. Her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved for 20 years. The blue shawl her grandmother had woven by hand. The simple work dresses that had seen her through 3 years of trying to make a life on the frontier. Behind her, the sound of approaching hoof beats made her turn. A lone rider was coming down the dusty trail that led to her small homestead, his horse moving at an easy lope. As he drew closer, Elena could see he was a tall man in his 30s, wearing well-worn leather chaps and a hat that had seen better days. His horse was a sturdy buckskin, and both rider and mount had the look of men who'd spent their lives working cattle. Under the open sky, the cowboy reined in his horse a respectful distance away and touched the brim of his hat. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying a gentle Texas drawl. "I saw the smoke from about 10 miles out. Are you hurt?" Elena shook her head, not trusting her voice to remain steady. The cowboy dismounted and took a step closer, his eyes taking in the destruction and her obvious distress. "I'm Cole Brennan," he said simply. "I run cattle for the Bartee Ranch about 20 miles south of here." "What happened?" "The Carver brothers," Elena managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "They said if I didn't sell them my land, they'd make me regret it." Cole's jaw tightened. He'd heard of the Carver brothers, a trio of ruthless men who'd been forcing small homesteaders off their land through intimidation and violence. The territorial authorities seemed either unable or unwilling to stop them. "They did this while you were inside?" Cole asked, his voice taking on a harder edge. "I was at the creek, getting water," Elena explained. "When I came back, the house was already burning. They were riding away laughing." Her voice broke slightly. "They burned everything, my clothes, my furniture, my father's books, everything." Cole looked at the young woman standing amid the ruins of her life and felt something stir in his chest. She couldn't have been more than 25. With dark eyes that spoke of Spanish heritage and a strength that was evident even in her despair. Despite everything she'd lost, she was still standing, still fighting. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "do you have somewhere to go? Family nearby?" Elena shook her head. "My parents died 3 years ago. I've been working this land alone ever since." She gestured hopelessly at the smoking ruins. "I thought I could make it work. I thought if I just worked hard enough, was careful enough." The defeat in her voice decided Cole. Without hesitation, he shrugged out of his heavy wool coat and stepped forward. "Not anymore," he said firmly, draping the coat around her shoulders. "You're not alone in this." The coat was warm from his body heat and smelled of leather, horses, and the clean scent of the open range. For the first time since the fire, Elena felt a small measure of comfort. "I can't accept charity," she said, though she pulled the coat closer round herself. "I don't even know you. It's not charity," Cole replied. "It's what neighbors do for each other. And my name's Cole Brennan, so now you know me." Elena looked up into his weathered face and saw something she hadn't expected. Genuine kindness without any hint of pity or calculation. In 3 years on the frontier, she'd learned to read men quickly. Cole Brennan was the real thing. A man who helped because it was right, not because he expected something in return. "Elena Martinez," she said, extending a soot-stained hand. "And thank you." Cole shook her hand gently, noting the calluses that spoke of hard work and the strength in her grip that suggested she wouldn't stay down long. "Miss Martinez," he said, "I can't bring back what you lost today, but I can make sure you have a roof over your head tonight and a chance to start over. The Bartee has a bunkhouse for visiting hands, and the foreman's wife, Mrs. Patterson, has been looking for help in the ranch kitchen." "You're offering me a job?" Elena asked, surprised. "I'm offering you a chance," Cole corrected. "What you do with it is up to you." As the sun began to set over the Nevada landscape, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded Elena painfully of the flames, that had destroyed her home, she made a decision that would change both their lives. "Mr. Brennan," she said, straightening her shoulders beneath his coat, "I accept your offer. But I want to be clear about something. I'm not running away from the Carver brothers someday. I'm going to make them pay for what they did." Cole smiled. For the first time since arriving at the burned homestead, "Miss Martinez, something tells me they have no idea what they've started." Subscribe to our channel for more incredible frontier stories. You won't believe how Elena's quest for justice unfolds as they rode toward the Barty Ranch. Elena wearing Cole's coat and riding double behind him on the buckskin. Both of them understood that this was more than just a rescue. It was the beginning of a partnership that would test every assumption the frontier had about what women could do and what men would risk to help them do it. The Carver brothers had thought they were destroying a helpless woman's life. Instead, they'd awakened something fierce and determined, and given her an ally who understood that sometimes justice had to be taken rather than waited for. The coat that Cole had given Elena was more than just protection against the evening chill. It was a symbol of the fact that she would never again face the world alone. 3 weeks after the fire, Elena Martinez had transformed from a homeless victim into the most efficient kitchen manager the Barty Ranch had ever seen. She rose before dawn to have breakfast ready for 30 cowboys, organized supply runs with military precision, and somehow found time to help Mrs. Patterson with the ranch bookkeeping. But Cole Brennan knew she was planning something. He could see it in the way she studied maps of the territory during her breaks, in the careful questions she asked about the Carver brothers' operation, and in the determined set of her jaw when she thought no one was watching. "She's going after them," Mrs. Patterson said one evening as she and Cole watched Elena practicing with a rifle behind the bunkhouse. "That girl's got revenge burning in her heart. Can you blame her?" Cole replied, impressed despite himself at Elena's steady aim. "They destroyed everything she had, and they'll kill her if she goes after them alone," Mrs. Patterson said bluntly. "The Carver brothers don't just burn houses, Cole. They've killed at least 3 homesteaders that we know of." Cole had been thinking the same thing for days. Elena was brave and determined, but she was also one woman against 3 ruthless killers who had the tacit support of corrupt, territorial officials. That night, he found Elena sitting on the porch of the main house, wearing his coat and staring up at the star-filled Nevada sky. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. Elena nodded, making room on the wooden steps. "I've been thinking about what you said the day of the fire, about not being alone anymore. What about it?" "I want to know if you meant it," Elena said, turning to look at him directly. "Because I'm going after the Carver brothers, and I could use a partner." Cole had expected this conversation, but hearing her say it out loud still made his heart race with both admiration and concern. "Elena," he said carefully, "they're dangerous men. They've killed before, and they won't hesitate to kill again." "I know," Elena replied calmly. "That's why I need to stop them before they hurt anyone else. But I'm not planning to ride in with guns blazing. I'm planning to be smart about it." She pulled out a hand-drawn map and spread it on the porch between them. "I've been talking to other homesteaders who've had run-ins with the Carvers. There's a pattern to what they're doing." Cole studied the map, which showed the locations of burned homesteads, intimidated families, and forced land sales throughout the territory. "They're not just random attacks," Elena continued. "Look at the properties they've targeted. They're all along the route where the railroad is planning to build through the territory." Cole's eyes widened as he understood the implications. They're not just driving people off for the fun of it. They're accumulating land for the railroad company. "Exactly," Elena said. "And if we can prove that connection, we can bring in federal authorities instead of relying on local law enforcement. That's probably being paid to look the other way." Cole looked at Elena with new respect. She hadn't just been planning revenge. She'd been planning justice. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Elena smiled for the first time since the fire. "I need you to help me prove that connection. And then I need you to help me make sure the Carver brothers face real consequences for what they've done. That could mean going up against the railroad company," Cole pointed out. "They have more money and power than anyone in the territory. They also have more to lose if their illegal activities are exposed," Elena countered. Railroad companies can't afford scandals when they're trying to get federal land grants. Over the next hour, Elena laid out her plan. It was ambitious, dangerous, and required both of them to risk everything they'd worked for. But it was also brilliant in its simplicity. They would gather evidence of the Carver brothers' connection to the railroad by infiltrating their operation. Cole would pose as a drifting cowboy looking for work, while Elena would use her homesteader contacts to document the pattern of intimidation and forced sales. "It's going to be dangerous," Cole said when she finished explaining. "If they suspect what we're doing, they'll try to kill us," Elena finished matter-of-factly. "I know, but Cole, they're going to keep destroying families until someone stops them, and the territorial authorities aren't going to do it." Cole studied Elena's determined face in the starlight and made his decision. "All right, I'm in. But we do this together, and we watch each other's backs every step of the way." Elena extended her hand. "Partners?" "Partners," Cole agreed, shaking her hand and sealing a pact that would test both their courage and their growing feelings for each other. Subscribe to our channel now. The dangerous undercover mission that follows will keep you on the edge of your seat. The next morning, Cole gave his notice at the Barty Ranch, claiming he wanted to try his luck further north. Elena arranged to stay with a homesteader family near the Carver brothers' base of operations, ostensibly to help with their children, while she looked for a new place to settle. As Cole rode away from the ranch, Elena's voice followed him. "Be careful, partner. I'm getting attached to that coat of yours." Cole turned in his saddle to see her standing on the porch, still wrapped in his wool coat, and felt his heart skip a beat. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, his desire to help a woman in need had transformed into something deeper and more complicated. The mission to bring down the Carver brothers had become about more than justice. It had become about protecting the woman he was falling in love with, and proving that sometimes the best alliances were forged not in comfort, but in the crucible of shared danger and common purpose. The coat Elena wore had become a symbol of trust between them. Soon, it would be tested by bullets, betrayal, and the kind of choices that defined character on the unforgiving frontier. 2 months into their undercover operation, Cole Brennan had successfully infiltrated the Carver brothers' gang as a hired gun, while Elena had become the unofficial coordinator of homesteader resistance throughout the territory. The evidence they'd gathered was devastating. Financial records linking the Carvers to Pacific Railroad interests, witness statements from intimidated families, and most damning of all, written orders from railroad executives authorizing any means necessary to clear land along the proposed route. But their success had come at a cost. Cole was living among men who would kill him without hesitation if they discovered his true purpose, while Elena was constantly moving between homesteads, always one step ahead of Carver enforcers who'd begun to suspect organized resistance. The crisis came on a cold November morning when Elena received word that the Carvers were planning a massive raid to drive out the last holdout families. Before winter set in, 50 armed men were going to sweep through the territory, burning every homestead that refused to sell. Elena knew she had to warn Cole, but their usual method of communication, letters passed through sympathetic homesteaders, was too slow. The raid was planned for the next day, and Cole was riding with the Carvers, unaware that he was about to participate in what would essentially be a massacre. Against every instinct for self-preservation, Elena made a decision that would either save lives or get her killed. She would ride directly to the Carver camp and find a way to warn Cole. She arrived at the outlaw hideout just after sunset, wearing Cole's coat over a simple dress and carrying a basket of food as if she were just another homesteader woman bringing supplies to men who'd threatened her family. The camp was a collection of rough tents and lindos in a hidden canyon, filled with the kind of men who made their living through intimidation and violence. Well, drawled Jake Carver, the eldest and most vicious of the 3 brothers, as Elena approached the camp. "Look what we have here." A little dove flying right into the wolf's den. Elena forced herself to remain calm as 20 pairs of hostile eyes turned toward her. "I brought food," she said simply, holding up the basket. "My family, we want to show there's no hard feelings about the land sale." Jake Carver's laugh was cold and predatory. "No hard feelings?" "Honey, you people still don't understand how this works. We don't want your friendship. We just want you gone." That's when Elena spotted Cole among the group of men around the campfire. Their eyes met for just an instant, and she saw him tense, as he realized the danger she'd put herself in by coming here. "Actually," said Cole, standing and moving casually toward Elena, "I'll take that food. Been riding all day, and I'm hungry enough to eat a horse." He took the basket from Elena's hands, and in the process, managed to whisper urgently, "Tomorrow morning, 50 men, get out of here." But their brief exchange hadn't gone unnoticed. Frank Carver, the middle brother and the smartest of the three, had been watching their interaction with growing suspicion. "You to know each other," Frank said, his hand drifting toward his gun. "Real interesting coincidence, Cole. This little lady showing up here just when we're planning our big operation." The tension in the camp became electric as men began to realize that something was wrong. Elena felt her heart hammering against her ribs, but she forced herself to speak calmly. "I don't know what you mean," she said. "I've never seen this man before in my life." But Frank Carver wasn't buying it. "Strip off that coat," he ordered Elena. "I want to see what you're hiding underneath." Elena clutched Cole's coat closer round herself. "I'm not hiding anything. The coat," Frank repeated, his gun now fully drawn. "Take it off, now." Elena looked at Cole and saw him preparing to make a move that would almost certainly get them both killed. 20 armed men against one cowboy and a woman in a dress were impossible odds, even for someone as skilled as Cole. That's when Elena made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. "You want to know about the coat," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Fine. This coat belongs to the man I love, and I've been wearing it every day since the night you burned my house down." The camp fell silent as Elena's words registered. She pulled the coat tighter around herself and continued speaking, her voice carrying across the canyon like a bell. "Cole Brennan gave me this coat the night you destroyed my home, my clothes, everything I owned in the world. He said not anymore when I told him I had nothing left. And he was right. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible frontier stories. You won't believe the courage Elena shows in this final confrontation. Because you didn't destroy me," Elena continued, addressing Jake Carver directly. "You made me stronger. You made me realize that sometimes good people have to fight back against evil, even when the odds seem impossible." She reached into the coat pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. "And you made me realize that the only way to stop bullies is to expose them to people with more power." Jake Carver's face went pale as he realized what Elena was holding. "Those are copies," she said calmly. "The originals are already on their way to federal authorities in Carson City, along with witness statements from every family you've terrorized and financial records, proving your connection to Pacific Railroad." The silence in the camp was broken by the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Lots of them. Within minutes, the canyon was surrounded by federal marshals and territorial militia, led by officials who'd been waiting for exactly the kind of evidence Elena and Cole had provided. As the Carver brothers and their men were arrested, Cole moved to Elena's side, his admiration for her courage evident in his eyes. "Elena," he said quietly, "what you just did was the bravest thing I've ever seen, but it was also the most reckless." Elena smiled, still wearing his coat like armor against the Nevada wind. "You said I wasn't alone anymore. I figured that meant we were brave together." 6 months later, Cole Brennan stood at the altar of the newly built church in what had once been Elena's destroyed homestead. The railroad company, eager to avoid further scandal, had provided compensation for all the families they'd displaced, allowing many of them to rebuild better than before. Elena Martinez walked down the aisle wearing a new white dress, but over it, she wore Cole's wool coat. Some traditions, she decided, were worth keeping, dearly beloved. The preacher began, "We are gathered here today to witness the union of two people who found each other in the ashes of tragedy and built something beautiful from the ruins." As they exchanged vows, Elena and Cole both understood that the coat she wore symbolized more than just protection from the cold. It represented the moment when a simple act of kindness had grown into love, partnership, and the kind of courage that could change the world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of love, justice, and second chances from the American frontier. Hit that subscribe button now, because these tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things will restore your faith in the power of standing up for what's right. After the ceremony, as they stood together greeting their guests, Elena finally took off Cole's coat and handed it back to him. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Cole smiled and draped the coat around both their shoulders. "Keep it," he said. "Something tells me we're going to need it for all the adventures ahead." Your subscription helps us continue bringing these incredible tales of frontier love and justice to life. Subscribe now and join us for more amazing stories that prove love and courage can overcome any obstacle.